I want to talk today about East Coast Rising. This is another Tokyopop. This is Volume 1, and I will tell you right now that Tokyopop canceled this on Becky when she was, I believe, I just read this article, she was 2/3 of the way working through Volume 2. So this is another original story from Tokyopop that was, I'm going to say, prematurely canceled. But it sucks. And this ends somewhat similar to, I'll just show you this, to Pirates of the Caribbean 2 with Jack jumping into a kraken. So here we have one of our leads. We have this thing that has sort of a human skull and tentacles, and this is how the book ends, which sucks. But it is good. I did enjoy it. Let's dig into that a little bit, because it starts with action. I'll show you this too. So literally the first thing you see is a fight. There is ship firing and being fired upon. A lot of this is very close up. And we get to a point where the smoke literally clears. And one of our leads is alone in the ocean. He gets rescued. He does miscellaneous jobs around his new ship. And it takes, there's no page numbers, but I'm saying it's about 1/3 of the way through the book before we get to a point where he tells his new captain that he knows where some treasure is buried. And from there, things move quickly. But from that action-packed beginning until this point where the bookmark is, it's pretty slow. He's helping a chef on board. He's swamming the decks. He's collecting eggs from birds. It's, I think that's the unfortunate part of this book, is there's a lot of time where just the story isn't that compelling. We're learning about characters, which is also important, but there's no drive. They just seem to be somewhat listless. But it is Becky Cloonan art, both written and drawn by Becky Cloonan. This was put out in 2006. I'd have to look up when she starts. She did some work for DC, specifically one of the Batman issues during Scott Snyder's run. She then went on to the early issues of Brian Wood's Conan series, which I loved and are gorgeous. But she did some other stuff that I'm hoping to get to soon, because I did mention that I do these things in themes. So this I previously read, so it is by Cloonan and Vasilis Lolos, who did The Last Call. And then from here I can get into Ba and Moon, who I absolutely love, and I have a ton of their stuff. But also this, which she also did herself. She self-published, and this I similarly love. So I'm getting through some of this Tokyopop stuff. I believe MBQ might be the end of this theme, and there is a holiday coming up, so I will have a day off. Maybe I could do a bunch of readings, read through MBQ, do a video for that, and put Tokyopop behind us in these series that are cut short. But let's talk a bit more about this, because it does start with, I showed you, ships fighting. And there's never a year established as far as when this is taking place. I'm saying it's the future. The oceans have risen. They are on the east coast of the United States, talking about landmarks, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Hoboken. All of these things are underwater, and we see some of that later in the series. So here you can see some of what's going on. But the world is underwater, mostly, more so. It's hard to say. And there are essentially pirate ships. There are multiple. There's a history to some of that. Characters do know each other. Their backstories aren't gone into in great detail, but there are a number of characters here. And there's a sense of their history, especially between the ship captains and some of the crew. And it is good once it starts rolling. I don't ultimately know if I'm recommending this or not. I said it's a slow start, and initially I was thinking this is a book that I was going to ultimately wind up giving away. I do have better stories from Becky. She has since, I think, transitioned over to a writer for DC. She seems in recent years to have transitioned from artist to writer. She's a co-writer on one of my favorite DC books of the last 10 years, which was Gotham Academy. She did have an Image title for a few years, which is escaping my memory. And she has Batgirls going currently. But, yeah, I wasn't sure early on because it was so slow. Things just weren't going anywhere, seemingly, that I thought I was going to give this away. But it does end well, even if it ends on a cliffhanger, so I might just stick this with a few of the others that I've recently reviewed, Bombos vs. Everything and The Last Call, and just shelve these together as incompletes, you know? Because I did ultimately enjoy the story. I wish it had continued, and as I've said in other videos, Tokyopop was not great about returning rights to their creators. So I think a lot of this stuff, the creators can't continue except through Tokyopop, and if Tokyopop isn't interested, then it's just dead, which sucks. But there is material at the back here, which I always enjoy. So a little breakdown of, this is one of the ships. There's another of the main ships. This, at one point, looks very much like one of those G.I. Joe tanks. There's a specific panel that just looks unmistakably. Which goes into the... Oh, there's the tentacle skull tanking ship. She goes into the breakdown of the logo design, which I do think is phenomenal. I don't know. So it's a hard book to recommend, but I did enjoy it, and I think I ultimately am going to keep it rather than putting this in the to-go pile. I mean, all of this stuff is ultimately your decision whether or not you're going to follow up on any of my recommendations, but just know that this had a second volume coming, and that it was cut short by the publisher, not by Becky, and it's probably never going to receive the sequel that was intended.